Welcome to the Launch Author Reveal, a talk show where we go between the pages of the book, behind the words, and right into the heart of the author who penned them for the intimate reveal of the book's backstory. Book lovers get great reads and giveaways, and authors get revealed during Q&A. Now, here's the Launch Author Reveal host, Michelle Chudy.
So, hello, welcome to the Launch Author Reveal. This is Michelle Chudy. I just want to say welcome and thanks for joining us via webinar. And we have a fantastic guest today. Her name is Susan Bafford, and she is an amazing author with an amazing story. So if you have ever wanted to speak to a living miracle, now is your chance, because she is literally the face of new beginnings, and I cannot wait to share her story with you. So before you settle in, I want you to know that if you're on via webinar, that you actually have the ability to engage with the author. So there is a chat feature. And all you need to do is post your information in there as far as like your name, your location, love to see where you're signing in from. And you can post your questions in that area. I just ask that if you use the chat, if you want to share your question with everyone, that you set the settings to panelists and all attendees. So that's basically how we play this game, and just love to interact with you all and let you know that I am moderating and you have your chance to engage with our fantastic author. So let me go ahead one more time. I want to try to get this thing on Facebook because this story is so powerful that I want everyone to be able to hear Susan's story. So Facebook is giving me a hard time today, and I'm going to bring you guys in on this journey as we're recording to know that we are trying to get as many people into the Launch Author Reveal as possible, because one, we're giving away free books on top of taking you into the backstory. So we are literally taking you behind the pages and behind the book into the heart of the author, so you get the story of why they wrote the book. So that being said, let me tell you about this amazing author, because she has had a journey that is going to just keep you riveted in her book that she's going to be doing the backstory on is Transform from Victim to Victorious. And this is how I want you to know Susan, is that she is victorious. So she basically is someone who practices coaching and helping people to achieve a level of happiness and joy in her life. She's an entrepreneur, and most of her life she's been doing things that are entrepreneurial, but she's been a happiness coach since 2011. So her lifelong passion is to help people become their best. She has attended nationwide training programs and has worked directly with people all over the world. And she's dedicated her career to helping people succeed for nearly 3 decades. So obviously she's walked this thing out, she has experience, and she knows what she's talking about. So she's focused on developing leaders as well. And one of her greatest achievements is, helping them become who they are today, which is successful. And for 6 years, she's worked with launching video platforms with live broadcasting video campaigns. So she knows the issues that we're having with the tech side. So we're going to laugh about this because 2 video people can't get the video to work. So this will not be funny, but it is funny for right now. But anyway, let me bring this fantastic author on so you can actually meet her, because this is about her, not me. So give me 1 second. Let me bring her on. Susan, come on in to the webinar and let's talk to these fine folks so we can tell them about your story.
Hey, I'm so glad to be here today. Gosh, what an amazing introduction. I want to meet that girl.
Yeah, I know, isn't that right? Though it's like we walk out what's on paper, but the great thing is that you are who you are, and who you are on paper, it's all legit. So I can actually testify to that. She's amazing. So, okay, just so you know, Facebook is still giving us some issues today. We're not live streaming, so we're just with our webinar crowd today. Okay. So that being said, y'all interact with us. We want to make sure that you know that this is for you, and this is about, getting the story out there. But Susan, what do you want us to know about you that was not mentioned in your bio? We're going to talk about your backstory, but tell us something that's really cool that we don't know about you.
Well, let's see. I have 3 amazing daughters and 6 sensational grandchildren. and they're like so fun. If I would have known how great grandkids were, I would have probably had more kids because they are amazing. So I love to cook healthy foods. Like, it's that process of getting healthy over the years. And so now I have found that I love to cook. And we just remodeled our kitchen. And we've been under construction for 3 years. So my kitchen's really fun as well. So I think that's probably one of the most intriguing things, because for years I hated to cook. I mean, it was not anything I wanted to do ever. And I love it now. So
that's funny, because I hate to cook as well. Maybe you need to either move closer
yeah,
on me, or we need to remodel our kitchen. Maybe it'll make it more fun for me. But yeah, that's my thing too, is just like I have all the greatest intentions to do things, but it's like I think about food when I'm hungry, and then it's often craving driven. But anyway,
you have a little one at home too. That makes a big difference. I'm an empty nester, so I have time.
Well, even when I didn't have children, I still didn't like to cook. So I don't know if that's going to make a difference or not. So there's a little bit about me, is like, I am not comfortable in the kitchen. I can do it, but I just don't like it. But anyway, let's get into your story, because I was literally blown away by what I read on your journey. I am literally talking to a miracle. And if you guys didn't know that, this woman is not only an overcomer, she is a living, breathing miracle, and she is the face of new beginnings. So I just look at, just wow. So I want people to understand that the person that's sitting in front of them, that when you're talking, that you had to journey to get to who you are today. So let's talk about that. Tell me about why you wrote your book and how that process happened to get to the point where you were able to write it.
Well, I knew about 6 or 7 years ago, my aunt had given me a journal, and I found myself writing in this journal ideas for a book. And I thought, me writing a book? That's so bizarre, because I never thought that, when you're labeled with the labels that I was given in school, I was labeled a slow learner. I was put in all these special reading classes. I was told I was dyslexic, and on and on and on. And so for me to even take that elephant and start chewing on it with a book, I was amazed that God wrote that with my hand. So I kept that journal really close to me, because I thought maybe someday. And, when I did find KBA, actually, that taught me how to do the mechanics of it, that's kind of what, set that apart. But in the interim of this 28-year journey, it's really been the Lord and declarations. And I'm not sure if my daughter Casey is on or not, but I remember I used to shout my declarations, because the enemy did not want me to move forward in any type of success or any type of movement that God had planned for my life. So I have this declaration. I could say it right here. It's quite long. I could actually email it to you if you want to opt into my website. I send it out all the time. But I choose to initiate God's promises and blessings in my life today by declaring them as true. Now, it goes on from there, but it felt like when I got up in the morning that the enemy was sitting there waiting to destroy my thinking.
Wow.
And it probably happens to everybody. But
you know what, though, that your story about transformation of thinking is powerful, because that is one of the common threads. As I was reading through, and I listened to your book, so it wasn't like I was just reading it. I had it on audio, so I had the reinforcement of what you were saying in my ear. That it literally was transformation of thinking. So I want people to understand. First of all, KBA is Kingdom Builders Academy. Susan and I met through that, going through a coaching certification. So writing a book is part of, the certification, but it's bigger than that. So I wanted to just spell that out for those of you that are not familiar with that. But so if you don't know Susan's story, Susan not only came into this world compromised according to man's standards, she was declared that she was going to be she wasn't going to live, that she had a 50-50 chance of being brain dead. I don't want to give like all the meat away in the book, because I want you guys to get her book. It's powerful. But, there's a couple times in your life that you should have been dead. Mm-hmm. Just from the circumstances of the arrival of your birth to the accident that you had, another brain injury as a result of your accident, and it was like the enemy was constantly trying to snuff you out.
Right.
But the thing that I found to be one of the most riveting is that when that wasn't successful, he tried to squash you in your thought process and in your spirit. So let's talk about that journey, so people understand where you started and where you are right now, what you had to walk through.
Yeah, walking through being told you're a loser, is it's tough. And my mom has passed away. I love my mom to death. We became really close in her latter years, but she was not the nurturing mom that, basically at 7:30 at night, it was go to bed. So, when you don't have that now, I did get quite a bit from my grandma. My grandma was my nurturer, but I didn't live with my grandma, So I think the process of moving forward was it was like trudging through mud for a very, very long time. And I was like, this is life. And it was just mistake after mistake, especially as I became an adult. Now, before I was 3, the enemy tried to take me out twice with, like Michelle said, a brain injury and a ruptured lung, which was very common in the 60s. So the miracles that happened through that, it was just God. When I look back and I find out, from my mom, what kind of man this doctor was and who he was, and his state of thinking, made such a huge difference. And then having that praying grandma, just really made it just opened up pathways for Jesus to be able to work through what the enemy planned in John 10:10. He planned to destroy me, but Jesus came to give me life. So really in Romans 12:2, Paul tells us that we are not conformed by this world. And once I got a hold of that concept, once I got a hold that I am not conformed by what the world tells me, you're dumb, you're stupid, you're dyslexic, you're in special math, you're in special reading, you're never going to make it. I was literally voted most likely not to succeed in high school. Believe that or not. Now, I was dealing drugs in high school, but I was voted most likely not to succeed. So in that scripture, do not be conformed by this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. Once I got a hold of Jesus and I discovered that I could renew my mind, that what was here was I was like the co-creator of my life. And it was amazing. But and you can come to all this revelation in a day. But you got to go to bed and you got to get up. And it was always the morning when I woke up that the enemy was sandblasting me and pulling me back and using people and words to pull me back. So I'm an advocate of words. That's one of my big things. If someone says, oh, that scared me to death, I correct them. No, don't say. Or if they say, well, my arthritis is really flaring up today. And in my mind, I will see, oh, so you swaddle up your arthritis and you hold it really close to you and you call it yours.
That is so funny that you say that, because, people do not understand the power of words, and that you were literally cursed from the enemy from the time that you came in. Granted, we all come into like a sinful origin, but you literally had people like sandblasting you, as you said, from the moment of the doctors declaring that you're going to be this, the expectations of your parents, you're going to be this. And I look at the consistency of your grandmother who was speaking life over you. And it shows you the power of the spoken word and the power of the declaration of the positive, which comes from the word of God. How that no matter what man says or what the enemy puts over you, that you can bust through that when you declare and use the word of God. That is so powerful. So let's, and I agree with everything that you say, that words and declarations are a way to transform and get your thinking into the place of where it needs to be. So you
and they
wrote,
got to be memorized.
I'm sorry?
They have to be memorized so you can pull them out of nowhere. So
Yeah.
when you get that slap in the face or that put down, it's hard to train your brain to immediately go to the other thing. And I remember learning that from Norman Vincent Peale. He says that as soon as a negative thought comes in or something said to you, you have to combat it over here with a good thing. And so, yeah, we've done that.
Well, I can tell you right now that where we're at on trying to get your story out, the enemy doesn't want your word to be heard, but it will be. It will be. So just know that your voice will not be muzzled. It will not be taken out, that you will speak and you will live to declare the works of the Lord. I speak that over you in Jesus' name. So I just want you to know that we have Larry and we have Billy Joe and Kim watching on webinar. And so y'all, if you have questions for Kim, I'm sorry, not Kim. If you have questions for Susan, please, put them into the chat. And I know there's other folks that are watching as well, because I want to engage with her on the depth of her story, because it is so riveting. You literally have gone through tragedy after tragedy after tragedy, and then to end up as the happiness coach of all things. It's like, you would look at that situation and like, how could anyone say that they could be happy? You had survived, again, 2 situations where you should have died, at least 2 that, we're going to say that are like blown out. There's other things that you've lived through that you should have died as a result of your lifestyle. But, you were attacked at a young age. I mean, you were 12 and literally crushed as a little girl, and when you were physically attacked. But when did you start seeing yourself as a victim?
That's a really good question. When I have written that story of what happened when I was 12 and the rape and the violation, in that moment, I didn't feel like I was a victim. I felt like I was just going to get through it. So I literally took that event and I just squashed it up into a little ball, and I tucked it up as tight as I could, and I shoved it down in my spirit, never to be heard from again. That was it. No one was going to know that happened to me, because that would just make everything a lot worse. Now, I was already I'm way taller than everybody and like skinny as a rail. And so I stand out because of that. And I get called stork and all these things because of the way my body was when I was little. And I think, I snow skied, and that incident happened in the winter. And I remember going skiing shortly after that. And, when you ski, and I had been skiing since I was little, I learned to walk and ski at the same time. So I felt that adrenaline that was so natural, that was so me, that was good feeling. And I thought, wow, something shifted within me, because I literally, I quit playing with dolls. I quit being a little girl at 12. Everything shifted right then. So I didn't subconsciously know that I had become a victim, but internally I had become a victim. And then the path that I took from there mapped out that I was acting and receiving life as a victim. And it wasn't until that day, May 7th in 1989, that Jesus came into my life and shifted that. And it's like an atmosphere shift. It was so dynamic. I literally, I always love meeting people that grow up in the church and they know Jesus since they were 5 years old, and they know all the Bible stories and all the songs. And I'm always so intrigued by those people because I was not. But then they love to hear my story because I literally had like lightning bolts go through the interior of my hands when I was saved. It was,
Wow.
yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm one of those ones that grew up in the church, but still managed to find myself in plenty of the pits along the way because of, my background was I had a history of repressed memories, and I had a sexual abuse background that I didn't know until I was 40.
Oh my
But,
word.
I look at you mentioned that your mother was not very nurturing, and that has an impact as well. Because, in your story, you talk about that at the age of 12, you're running with kids that your parents had no idea that you were running with. And there were high risk behaviors as 12-year-olds. Most 12-year-olds don't start trafficking drugs. Well, I shouldn't say most don't know the statistics of that, but that to me is high risk behavior just before you were raped. So at what point did you start gravitating into that area? Was it when people started to speak against you and you just didn't have any value for yourself because of all the names? Like, when did that start? When did you notice that you were starting to fall into that crowd where, it was like the drug crowd, I guess?
Yeah, I think I wore a lot of masks in that time. And I learned that early on, growing up in a small town, you grow up with everybody and you kind of know everybody. So I had a lot of friends that were the cheerleaders and the football players, and they were my friends, as well as the really, really bad people, that were not doing the right thing that I was hanging with. So I think as far as knowing I was on the wrong path, that was very conscious to me at an early age that I was not on the right path.
Okay.
When you're 16 and you want to, be on a Harley and haul drugs all over the United States or the world, that was my vision back then, was, to be bad, just be bad. It was crazy. Sometimes I think I should have, people ask me, well, why is your name with a Z and why is it with an S? Well, I really wanted to change it to Brenda. That was going to be after I got saved. I need to change my entire name. I have an entirely new identity. But my mom freaked out. So and then there's kind of another story why it's a Z as well. My husband's first wife has the same name as me. And there was lots of reasons why, but then it kind of became a branding thing as well.
Okay.
So on all of my platforms, I'm Susan Bafford with a Z, on Instagram and my website and my fan page on Facebook and stuff. It's all Susan with a Z. But she, there again, the enemy was still trying. I mean, she try, sign my name for things and stuff. So that's why but they charge you $290 to change one letter in your name.
Oh my gosh.
I never physically changed it to a Z. So I just use it for branding.
Well, I think that's really cool is that, you did get a new name when you came under the covenant of Jesus. You did get a new name. So, and he'll disclose that with you. He told me what mine is. And it's mine. He calls me mine.
Wow.
He's like, I'm yours and you are mine. And he keeps saying, you are mine. So he kept saying that to me. And I was like, and then he feels like he was like, that's your name. Your name's mine. You are mine. So, the thing that I want people to understand about your journey is that there was a broken road that most people have, a journey to get to where they are in their current state of healing. And some are more broken than others. You had places that were crumbled. And the fact that I'm sitting here talking to you, the happiness coach, in your beautiful self, is that I see a woman who not only has lived through, but you have been restored. I don't see that brokenness anymore.
Yeah.
And, one of the things I want people to understand is that it wasn't just a matter of living through near-death instances. It wasn't a matter of surviving a rape. There was high-risk behavior for years, to the point of you scared yourself.
Yeah.
You know, when was it that you were in Dallas that you became afraid? And I know that you spoke about one of your friends, but what was that fear turning point that it turned you back from that scenario, that you were afraid that you were going to go further down that road?
Yeah, having a friend pretty much kill his brain with angel dust really opened my eyes to where I was and what I was doing. That was a turning point. That was a big turning point. And that was a flesh turning point that Susan made without Jesus being my anchor. And I left the city right away, and I went back home. And, you know, you make these vows, you know, when they're not declarations and you're not saying them all the time and you're not in the word, they're just kind of vows. That I'm not going to be like this anymore, and I'm not going to travel down this path anymore. You know, I did go back, and I got actually a really good job, and I was able to do much better at specific things. It was then that I met my first husband, but the recklessness really stopped. I didn't stop doing certain things, but the recklessness of life, seeing that happen, good friend, you know, they were, you know, it was just a tiny bit too much of angel dust, and his brain was completely gone, and he still lives in a nursing home.
That's crazy. You know, what's really funny is that our stories are very similar as far as, like, you know, how we grew up in our friend group. You know, our school was small enough that, you know, you were friends with everyone just because you didn't have enough people to go around. So cheerleaders, jocks, you know, the book nerds and the druggies were all friends. You know, we all grew up together. We all just found our different places within. And some of us crossed lines, and others stayed true to our, like, actual affiliation. But you said something that was very riveting to me in your book. And it was about how even though you scared yourself and you moved, you still found yourself falling back into the same groupings because you hadn't changed on the inside. And that spoke volumes to me about what your story is about. That you, even though you were scared, you had a friend that you saw basically destroy himself and is wasting away in a mental institution as a result of it. But you still landed in the same spot from where you left from.
Yeah, you know, you don't know how to get away from it. You gravitate. As soon as I moved back, I gravitated towards even people I didn't know that were still in that sphere of, you know, smoking pot all the time and doing coke on the weekends and drinking and that kind of stuff. Actually, drinking was never a really big thing with me, but you just don't know how to find that other group of people. You don't know how to locate them, because everything that you know, it's a habit, and it's changing habits. And I believe people can make changes like that without Jesus, because you see a ton of people that are super successful that have done it all without God helping them. And many of them probably had a drug issue when they were younger or something, because you can make those conscious efforts. And there's a lot of stuff online today. Matter of fact, some of the memory stuff that I do, they don't talk at all about God. Jim Wicks, he never mentions God in any of his trainings, and he trains how to do and how to have and experience a really strong memory. So I do some teaching on that and some training on Periscope, and I love it. But his past is, totally different. So I think it's just because when we get saved, we find that body of believers in a church. And we maybe do some mission work, or we learn to serve. I think the transition that happens at salvation is learning to be a servant to the body, whether, you're feeding homeless people or going on missions trips. There's so many different areas. And that's when the whole value system of your heart begins to change, is when you can become a servant. And, just the other day, 41, George Bush passed away, and one of his biggest quotes was, becoming a servant is how he always projected himself. So I think there is a lot to say about the heart change. When your heart's not changed and you're still in the world, you just gravitate towards those people that are still going to be abusive to their own bodies. And, I think too, even language and, there's lots of different things that I think that we can strengthen our minds in different ways, and we can weaken our minds in different ways.
TD Jakes, if you guys know me from anything, I love TD Jakes. He's my daddy. So he's grown me up on a lot of meat preaching. And he has a very powerful sermon series on identity. And he talks about how we try to, especially like in the corporate world or a secular world, that we try to do things in order to become. But, the proper order is to know, then to be, and then to do. And, you're talking about like your heart change, but your thoughts are so important. Your heart and your mind are connected, that in order to transform your heart, you have to know, you have to have those thoughts transformed in order to get to the place of being able to walk those new behaviors out. And your book, Susan, literally is that journey. I want people to go into you came through, you found yourself married, had 2 beautiful daughters. And you found yourself even in an adult situation of still battling that like internal program of being not good enough. Your thoughts were not good enough, all those things that were spoken over you, to the point where you basically listened to everyone else. You had a couple of abortions. That was something that, to me, first of all, I just want to say thank you for the gift of transparency. You went to places in your book that most people were scared to go. And I will tell you that you pull back the veil and you gave the gift of transparency that I think that is going to be riveting and healing. But let's talk about you in your early married life with your first marriage, and how your thought process was still hindering you, and not just your happiness, it's just your overall life.
Yeah, that is definitely an interesting point that you bring up, especially when I go through finding out that I'm pregnant, and I had all these lower back x-rays done and had been taking some medication for migraines. And I really was not a healthy person at all. Plus I smoked, I still drank, and I still smoked pot quite frequently. So I hadn't changed anything in my mind yet. And even though I had these 2 beautiful little daughters, I still didn't have the feeling that I had a right to be me, or that I had any value. I didn't feel like I had any value. So we go into this genetic center because he's telling me we have to have an abortion. And I'm like, well, maybe not, maybe we don't have to. And they just, plowed me with all of oh, no. It's like a 90% chance that, the baby's going to have something wrong, and you have to, you have to get rid of this pregnancy. And no one ever called it a baby. It was just flesh, and back then, we didn't really have the internet. So you don't like do research on that kind of stuff, like to really find out that there is a beating heart in there. And this is actually murder that, we're doing here. So there's so much room for forgiveness if you have ever experienced an abortion, and you feel like you have any riveting effects. Even if you know Jesus, if you have any riveting effects, there's healing for you. And let me know if you need help with that, because I've been able to help a lot of women get past how the enemy will continue to attack your mind through abortion. It is such a curse of what's happened, not only what it really physically does biblically, but what it does to the mom. And very often I'll be in a grocery store or around a lot of women, and I'll wonder how many of these women are still so injured in their spirits.
Oh yeah, and the shame, that's one of the things that I have found during life coaching. I do now an integrated model between business and life coaching, but during the time when I was focusing solely on life coaching, Susan, the gag order of shame is so suffocating. I found it with incest victims. I found it with those that had abortions or those that had miscarriages and basically didn't want the baby and they lost the baby. The enemy will do things to basically squash you mentally and spiritually and emotionally to the point where you feel like you don't ever want to talk because you're so ashamed. And especially if you're a Christian, you know, it's one thing to actually have gone through it, but if you're a Christian and you feel like you can't ever talk about it because of the stigma that's going to be placed upon you, it's like you suffocate in your own shame. And it's actually a shame-based identity. It's a, you know, an area that needs to be healed. So I just commend you for one, speaking about, you know, the fact that you went through that and what the experience was like, and then also that you're bringing people on that healing journey. So I just want to say thank you on behalf of, you know, the men and women, because there's men that are affected by this too, that, Absolutely. You know, they've been advocates, they've driven, they've funded, you know, and the shame is there for them as well, and the guilt.
Yeah, and not being able to be a daddy. You know, I think too is really heart-wrenching for men that, like you said, have been an advocate for letting the abortions happen. You know, when I first experienced the healing and really knowing who these two people are, they were children, but they are people today in heaven. I just wanted to shout it from the rooftops. I wanted everyone to know how they could find refuge, you know, in their spirits from a living God that can make such a difference for them.
You know what I see, and you know that I have a prophetic gift, but when I see you, I see you're a lighthouse. You're a beacon of light, and you're standing so tall and erect. And when the Lord showed me the other day that when he establishes the house of God, that to be established actually means it's a posturing. It means to stand erect. I see you. You said you were ridiculed for being tall and thin, but I see that as a blessing because you were like heads up over, and you were meant to stand out because you were a beacon to those that can't see through the fog of shame and guilt. And your testimony is going to be so not just enlightening, but it's going to be something to bring them into the safe harbor. So when I see you, that's what I see. I see a lighthouse and I see a beacon for the Lord.
Well, no one's ever told me that before, and I collect lighthouses.
Do you really? Well, there you go. Oh, I love it when Jesus does that. So, there you go. You are, and you're collecting who you are. And praise the Lord for that. So when we're looking at your story, and I want to go back to your from transform from victim to victorious, because there was a shift that was at a place in your life that any woman, so for those that are watching that are our male counterparts, and I see Larry's on here as well, and some other folks, that there was a place, and I can speak being another female, that you were in basically a numb state. You were frozen. You were away from your girls, and you had divorced your first husband, and you had, to me, what I thought was a crazy arrangement for custody. They did like a year on, year off. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't think it would work. Crazy. That's why I agreed to it, because I didn't think it would work. And then he replaced me like in 2 weeks. So it worked. Wow.
Yeah. Okay. So just to give you a little bit more on that backstory, and again, I don't want to take away from her book because I want you to just experience it in its fullness. But Susan went through a time where she was living without her children and basically left to face just herself and her ways. And so buried herself in work. And I think that's what a lot of us do, men and women alike, that we tend to bury ourselves in mind-numbing activity in order not to think or feel. You just keep doing. Mm-hmm. And so at that place where, you know, you were pretty much crushed as a human being, you were crushed as a mother, and you find yourself in a situation where you got an invitation. So you get an invitation and you start listening to transformational tapes or CDs.
Mhm.
And this what goes back to my thought in my saying at the beginning of our reveal is that you started transforming your thinking. You started to see yourself differently. Let's talk about that as far as what that was like for you, and why did you even say yes to your cousin?
Well, that's a very interesting analogy or question as to why I said yes to him. I think because I was working so many jobs and I was working so hard, and when he dangled this carrot of going to an Amway event, I thought, oh wow, I could do that. I could probably do that. I mean, I'm doing all these other jobs. Why couldn't I do that? And I didn't go to the event on that premise. He shared this with me, and then he brought me over these CDs. So I'm like, actually, they were cassette tapes back then.
I was going to say, I remember those. I've listened to some of those. They were cassettes.
Yeah, they were cassettes.
We're dating ourselves,
Stories, and I would begin to, it was starting to change my thinking a little bit. And this was before I knew Jesus. So it started to change my thinking that, wow, these people had a pretty rough past too. They would tell their stories and their experience of how they got to where they were. They didn't really talk about how they sold anything or how they marketed anything. They talked about their life stories, basically. So I was hearing these rags to riches stories over and over and over again. And it started programming me that when I would, because back then we would smoke pot like people smoke cigarettes. And when I would smoke pot, then I would immediately go into your failure, you can't do anything, back into the old tracks. And there's actually some neural pathways in our brains. And I studied this later, and when I worked with PTSD and when I first launched happiness coaching, this was a big premise that I taught on. There's actually blood that flows into the brain, and it causes us to do different things. And when you study neural pathways in the brain, it's a biological reason why we can change our thinking. Like I said earlier, I know I follow people, I learn from people that are not believers because they have great material, but we can change the pathways in our brains, and it is biological blood that flows into our brain, and we can suffocate the bad portions, the portions that want to do bad things. And so I began to do that with tapes and books, and then he brought me the magic of thinking big and Think and Grow Rich. And I'm reading these books. Now, reading was not easy for me. I had to read out loud with a highlighter just to absorb. So it took me a long time to read, but I was so amazed at the material.
Look at you now. Look at you now. Look at who you are. You're an author that not only did you change how you thought, you literally are helping other people change how they think. Mm-hmm. Look at the power of what has been worked through you. Yes. Hey, you have a question here. I wanted to bring this up to you. Kim asked, do you have some ideas on how to overcome a shame-based identity? And I want to, pitch that out to you. I can talk to my journey and my coaching on that, but I want to get, from the happiness coach, how do you help people overcome, that lifestyle of shame and to transform, into, a renewed identity?
Really, the renewed identity comes from the declarations. And I wanted to share, and this goes right along with what you're asking. I am made in God's image, and we share biological, physiological, and spiritual qualities together with the Creator. So just this is one of my new declarations that I'm working on, and He's releasing the blessings around you. And when you focus on those words and really can go opt into my website, and I will send you the #1 declaration that pulled me through the muck and the mire. And I would literally, 5 times a day, I would say it. It's quite long, but you can memorize things pretty easily. I've been doing this. The original date is 2008 that I started. And so
what's your website, Susan?
What's that?
Go ahead and give them a URL so they know where to opt in.
Oh, it's SusanBafford.com. SusanBafford.com.
Okay, I want to make sure that they actually were able to get that link. Larry said, this is very good. I just talked to some men that are going through the same level of shame and hurt, so this is good. I just hope that we can get men that are hurting to take the time to really seek healing. Larry, thank you for injecting that, because there are men out there that I think are truly suffocating, and even men of God, because one, they don't want to admit that they need help, and that they also don't think it's manly to seek help. And I just want you to know, the Lord shared this with me today, Susan, that if you seek, you will find. It's like, as long as you're seeking him, he doesn't hide from us. And he was showing me, he's having in Micah for like at least a month now. He didn't let me pass the first couple of verses in chapter 4, but he let me go into chapter 5 today, only for the first couple of verses in there too. And it's talking about how, that Israel was in a place that, he was prophesying the birth of the Savior, and that out of Bethlehem and out of Ephraim, there was going to be, the ruler that comes forth. And he was just showing me today in the Word, and Larry, this applies to what you were just asking, that Jesus was hidden in flesh, and the wise men found him. Jesus was hidden and wrapped in grave clothes. And then, people found him. They found him when he was 12. They found him when he was the grave. So no matter where Jesus is, when you seek him, you will find him. And if I can tag on to what you were saying, Susan, about like the shame-based identity, to answer Kim's question, for my journey, because I had to deal with this. I had to deal with the shame-based identity, and you would not know that if you knew who I was at that moment in my life, because I did a lot of posturing, a lot of facades to mask what I was feeling on the inside. And you see some people that are kind of like over the top. It's normally because they're the polar opposite. And the biggest thing to get rid of a shame-based identity, Kim, is the testimony. That when we confess our sins to one another and we testify, it's one thing to be forgiven. It's another thing to testify and tell another human being. And that is what breaks the hold of the enemy, because you can be forgiven and still be in bondage. And when you literally talk to another person and you start testifying, it literally, it diffuses the grip of the enemy over your life, and that shame starts to come off when you start testifying and you claim what the Lord has done for you. And when I started, and it's like, with your book, Susan, about, transform from victim to victorious. When I found out that I had a sexual abuse past, I refused to call myself a victim. I had to go through this program called Savior, and I absolutely will not, because I am not, and I am not doing that. I mean, talking about kicking up the goads. But it was that surrender that gave me the ownership of what I had to go through the healing process. And a lot of it is, accepting truth, but it doesn't have to be your reality. I hope that helps.
Yes, that's good. That's really good.
Yeah, because your reality is that you were not anything that the enemy said. You weren't anything that the doctor said. You were not a loser. You were not, unsuccessful. And if anything, the Lord raised you up to show that no matter who you are and what the world says, what labels, that what he says is ultimately what matters, because you are who he says you are, and you can do what he says that you can do. It's that knowing, and then it's the being, it's the becoming what you know.
Right. Exactly. That's so true. Because anyone has access to that. You just have to have the God wanna, you have to want to make those changes, and it does get easier. It's truly amazing. When I wake up in the morning now, I don't really have to fight the devil like I used to.
Yeah.
It's not a battle like it. I mean, it's not gone. I mean, I still get attacked, especially if I sit back and don't stay in the Word. But there is some amazing things that happen when I wake up. It's not like it used to be. I used to feel like there was like a demon sitting there waiting for me to get up. And that's not there. That's not there anymore.
That's because you know your identity. You know who you are. And just like when I see you, I see royalty. When I see you, I see a woman who has authority. I see someone that knows their way through and can take other people through because you've walked it out successfully. So it's that knowing and then the being and then the doing. You
Yeah.
became who the Lord said you were.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no doubt. And it's like, I think when you're double-minded and you toggle between what man says and then what the Lord says, that double-mindedness is when you see a lot of hiccups along the way and, falling back into old, sinful lifestyles and whatnot. Kim says, thank you for the answers that she's on your site now. Yay. So such amazing answers. So a blessing from Kim on your responses.
Thank you.
Okay. So let me go ahead and I want to share your site of your book, and give me 1 second here and let me close this thing out and let me share my screen with everyone so you can get your hands on Kim. I'm sorry, I keep saying Kim because I just answered Kim's questions on Susan's book. First of all, she's giving away a signed copy, so you on the webinar are going to get a signed copy entry. So that being said, you're in the drawing for the giveaway, but she's also giving away a strategy session, 30-minute consult. And this woman is amazing. And not only is she amazing, she knows the way to get you from, a place where you're struggling to a place where you're fulfilled. So I want you to know that she's giving an awesome strategy session away as one of her giveaways. So you're going to be put in for that too. But let me go in here and share where they can actually get your book, Susan, and give them the site on how to get there for people that watch this post reveal, and then also if they are one of the ones that aren't picked for the drawing, they can actually still get your book. So if you go to Amazon, which is https://amazon.to/4/2KQGYR9, you can get this download, and it is a powerful little book. It's a quick read that goes straight to the heart of Susan, goes straight to the heart of you, and you will realize the transformation just from, what you read on these pages. So again, it's https://amazon.to/2KQGYRN. Okay. And you can see on that image what it felt like to be held back. And it wasn't just held back by a boundary, it was held back by barbed wire. So powerful image there. And I just encourage you all that you need to not only get this book, you need to recommend it to friends, especially if you know someone who's been struggling in the process. You see them wanting to move forward, but they can't. Susan can help them get to that lifestyle of freedom. She knows the way.
Yeah, there's a song by David Crowder called "Take Me Back to the Garden." Mm-hmm. And if you go and watch that on YouTube today, and just the first 50 seconds, the words that he uses, of her being taken back to the garden is really, really super powerful. My launch video is not quite ready yet, so normally I would have a launch video for you to watch at this point, but my videographer didn't have it quite ready, so I will share that on Facebook when it is.
Fantastic. And when we have some comments going on in the chat here, Larry says that he is so grateful. And then we get an amen from Cheryl to Larry's grateful comment. And I will tell you that I am grateful for the fact that you decided to come on as a launch author. And I had the privilege of hosting your reveal because one, it knits our destinies together. So maybe you consider me like maybe a power cord into your lighthouse. I don't know. It's just like, I'm just grateful to be part of it. But I look at it too, that even though Facebook Live did not cooperate, we will not be thwarted. This will be out on Facebook. We're going to promote it and get this video out there and let people see this story, because Susan literally is a living, breathing, walking miracle. And it's not like a once and done. She is literally the face of new beginnings. She is the 8th launch author on this reveal process. And for those of you that know biblical numerology, not to get into like all of the new age weird stuff, but God has symbology behind things that we do too. And 8 represents the number of new beginnings. And that's what Susan is. She is someone that should have been dead, twice. She should have died twice. She should have been crushed, and to the point where she wanted to take her own life from the things that she's lived through. But she didn't. She chose the high road, which is the way to Jesus, the road less traveled. And not only that, she's taking that road and bringing people back around with her that are walking the same path and helping them to learn from her journey. She's taking that brokenness and sharing her food. So I just want to say I love you for that.
Thank you.
So Cheryl says, Susan is my life coach, and she's amazing. She became a very good friend as well. I can see how that would happen, Cheryl, because you can't help but love her.
Oh.
So not only is she just beautiful on the outside, she's just amazing and beautiful on the inside, and it's very much what comes through. So I'm sure she coaches like that as well.
Well, one thing, remember that laughter is it's the antidote that ails all of us. So one other thing that you can do when you're bummed, when you're sad, is just make yourself laugh. We learn sometimes that we can laugh actually in the spirit as well.
Mm-hmm.
But if you laugh for 1 minute a day, it's like doing 10 minutes on a rowing machine. So laughter is one of the biggest and greatest things I teach.
I'm going to laugh myself thin again.
Yeah. But when you have a little one around, so when you have little ones around, they keep you laughing because they laugh a lot and they like to laugh. But when we don't have kids in our home anymore, we really have to find ways to make ourselves laugh. It's really important.
That is so powerful. I can truly see why you're branded as the happiness coach, because you're getting people back into the place of joy. It really is taking them back to the garden, your subtitle of your book, because it's remembering who you are in Christ. And well, first of all, it's knowing. You have to know before you can remember. So it's something, you're doing a lot of foundational identity work to get people where they're grounded in who they are, and then also remaining. Because happiness is something that I find intriguing, that you branded yourself with happiness, because it's situational. Joy is a fruit of the spirit, but happiness is situational, and it's a choice. Mm-hmm. And you are all about making wise choices. So I think well done on your naming.
Thank you. I actually had a coach that, I don't take credit for anything. People spoke all this into my life. Mia Davies. She's an online coach, Christian gal. And I was in one of her programs, and we were going through it all, and she branded me that. So I got that from Mia Davies.
Wow. Well, I think it's fitting, because you exude happiness. You exude joy. You exude the fruit of the spirit, and you are transformation. And I just want to let people know that transform from victim to victorious. It was a lifetime journey for you to get there, but you were given a new life during that transformation and started with a fresh slate. And you are literally walking that out in your new name, in your new life, in your new mindset. And I want to encourage people with Susan's story. One, get her book. You want to read about it, because one, she's going to help others along that journey as well. So if you, one, are struggling yourself and you can't beat those like old programs, you don't have to be someone that survived rape or abortion or any of the things that she went through, where she was without her children for a year. You don't have to have that type of oppression. You just have to have a negative mindset. And that's what Pastor Hagee, who was my pastor for a few years when I lived in Texas, he called it stinking thinking. You just have to have stinking thinking, and that will defeat you. Susan has your answers that can help you, undo that and to reprogram. So Susan, how can they find you? So, where are you at on social media? Where can they actually get to, kind of linking up with you?
Well, I did in my book in Amazon. If you have Kindle Unlimited, then you can download it for free. But I didn't know when I set it up. I set it up on the free giveaway for the first week, and I did a launch through Amazon, and I didn't know you can't do that twice. So I did submit a letter to them last night and asked them to give it to me for free for a month. And that was, they said expect 24 hours. So it's 99 cents, but it might be free by the end of today.
Oh, wow. Well, that's
On
a huge
regular
blessing, because you're right. They normally don't give you that long of a run for free giveaways. And just so you know, after 6 months, if you are on Kindle Direct, you can redo your promotions, but you have to go 6 months before they'll do that. So I can tell you, if that happens, that will be another miracle that the Lord is working on behalf of Susan Bafford. So that link that I gave you all earlier, that is a link to her book. And of course, for those of you that are on the webinar, you'll be put in for the drawing as well for her signed copy. But just know that that book is a very powerful, quick read, and it's going to bring healing. It's going to bring healing on all fronts. So again, if you're an author that's aspiring, whether you're in the process where you're promoting or you're thinking about writing, and if you want to be on the Launch Author Reveal, you just have to go to launchauthorreveal.com and let me know how I can help you. The only criteria is that it has to be edifying, uplifting, or educational in order to come onto the show, because we want to promote stories like Susan's to help people, with the journey to, speak life into people. And that's what this is about. And also to bless people with, great reads, and then also book giveaways. And these authors on their own accord, I've not asked for this. They're giving away strategy sessions on their own. I've not asked for that whatsoever. I encourage them to do things with their books, just to be a blessing even more than what they actually are. But Susan's like, hey, let me give this away. So Larry said he has his already. So look at that. We have your faithful tribe coming on here and supporting you. Y'all, do us a favor when I post this video, because Facebook Live is not doing its thing today. But it will not defeat us. Just go and tell people about the Launch Author Reveal. If you share my business page at Michelle Chudy Enterprises on Facebook and have people like and then basically follow, when it is live, it will come on. But these videos will live on there evergreen. So you'll be able to get Susan's reveal on there and, get access to the story to share too. But tell people about the Launch Author Reveal, because it's important that we help to promote, one, the blessing of the free books. But these authors are amazing. It's like, I am blessed to call you friend. I am blessed to actually be in the same arena with you all. But I want people to know them past their books. I literally want them to get into the heart of the author, so they see the people that are behind these words on paper, that they're powerful and they have more to give. A lot of these authors that are coming on recently are coaches on top of that. So they're speakers, they're coaching, all sorts of stuff. You never know what you're going to run into on these authors because they're so gifted and talented. But Susan, you're amazing. I just want to say thank you for coming on.
I've actually fallen in love with all of your authors. They've all been amazing. And I knew Michelle and I knew Dareth a little bit, but it's been so fun to meet all the other people that you have interviewed. You have a gift for this, and I throw blessings out to you for how you are able to inspire the story, the book, the author to deliver what needs to be said to the audience that day. And it's definitely a gifting that you've been given.
I love you. You just gave me goosebumps. You have a comment question on here from Mark. It said 99 cents is well worth the investment to pick up your copy today. And I agree. If it was $100, it would be worth the investment, because I look at it this way. Your life is worth the life of Christ. So I just look at it as whatever you spend on this, you're literally seeing a life that was redeemed multiple times and saved. You were preserved for such a time as this. Yeah. My tall lighthouse friend. I don't want to call you little, because you're not ever meant to be little. You're meant to be up and out and shining and bright. That's why the Lord named this Launch Author Reveal. He's revealing light through this show. And I am a light revealer. And boom, there she is. So there's your light, Susan.
Yeah.
So,
thank you.
Is there anything that you wanted to add before we get ready to sign off here? Because we are at the top of our hour. I gave you a little extra time, y'all, just because we had some stalling trying to get Facebook up. But anything that you guys want to ask before we sign off, or Susan, you want to add to, did we miss anything?
I think everything was, covered in all that we shared and talked about. I know the title, I got a little bit of hesitation from a few, just because there is a lot of books out there that have victim to victorious in them and transformed, and then the subtitle being taken back to the garden was, a premise and all that. But it's what God told me to do.
Mm-hmm.
And, when he tells me to do something, I do it verbatim. And sometimes other people don't like that as well, but I listen very carefully, and he's always very specific. So it's great.
Right there is a nice wrap on solidifying that you have been transformed, because the old Susan would have listened to man.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The old Susan would have changed what you thought and done a completely different title. So yay you, yay God.
Yay
because
God.
There are victims that are going to be victorious, and they're not going to see themselves any longer because of your testimony. And I want you all to know something, especially for those of you that are faithful watchers to the Launch Author Reveal, that the Lord has been prophesying through the order of these authors. I'm going to share this with you all, and I've not said this to anyone else as far as like on the reveal, but I have prayed for 5 smooth stones in my first 5 order, and then, as far as the Lord to bring them in 2 by 2s and 7 by 7s, that's what I prayed for your authors to come onto the show. And he has literally handpicked and placed in order where people are supposed to go. And if you go back and if you watch the reveals, look at the stories of the reveal and what you're getting, and look at the titles and look how the Lord is prophesying. I don't want you to see, I'm not going to say anything other than that. I want you to do your own seeking about how he is preparing you on the order and where Susan is at this moment on the transformation, on the new beginnings and what it takes to get there. Because she gave you a critical key to a gate to get through in order to transform, which is the thinking, it's the mindset. Okay. So that being said, we're going to wrap up this amazing session of this reveal with Susan Bafford. Again, go to her site to get her information. I gave you the link to the book. I'll put you all in for the drawing, but it's Susan on her site with a Z, S-U-Z-A-N, so you know how to find her, BAFFORD.com. But I want you to know that every life is a beautiful story. I want you to reveal yours and let your light shine. And if you're an author who wants to come on to the Launch Author Reveal, just go to launchauthorreveal.com and just let me know how I can help. God bless you all for coming in today and joining us, Susan. Love you, girl. You're amazing, and just blessings on everything that you touch. Okay.
Amen.
All right.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I appreciate you a whole bunch.
Oh, same here. Okay, y'all, we're back on Thursday. Billy Joe Dahl is coming back on Thursday, and she's going to talk about My Empty Life, the book that she just released. She's back on by popular demand, and you need to know more about this one. We couldn't cover her all in the first round, so we're going back round 2 with Billy Joe, and she's going to go deeper on her story and also her writing journey. So see you all on Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and catch it on the webinar, or you can catch it on live. God willing, it will work, and if not, we're going to just keep rolling. So talk to you soon. You guys have an amazing day. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining the Launch Author Reveal with Michelle Chudy. Write a book? Get launched. Head over to launchauthorreveal.com. Every life is a beautiful story. Reveal yours and let it shine.
You could be larger than life.